In a distant corner of the galaxy, humanity had risen far beyond its humble beginnings on Earth. For centuries, they had worked hard to build alliances, explore new worlds, and establish themselves as a key player in the interstellar community. But now, tensions were rising, and the once stable relationships between species were beginning to crack. The Galactic Council, an ancient governing body made up of representatives from dozens of alien races, was holding an emergency meeting. The Grand Chamber buzzed with nervous energy as ambassadors from across the galaxy gathered around the circular table. At the center of the room stood Admiral Caleb Hayes, a tall man with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. He wore his uniform proudly, every medal and badge shining under the soft glow of the overhead lights. Beside him sat Ambassador Rachel Morgan, her calm demeanor masking the storm brewing inside her. The meeting had been called because of accusations leveled against humanity. An alien faction, known as the Krylos, claimed that humans had violated sacred treaties by deploying advanced weapons near neutral zones. These weapons, they argued, posed a threat to peace and stability. The Krylos ambassador, a towering insectoid creature with shimmering green exoskeleton, gestured wildly as he spoke, his voice echoing through the chamber. Humans have broken their promises, the Krylos ambassador declared, his mandibles clicking angrily. They are reckless, unpredictable, and dangerous. If we do not act now, they will destroy everything we have worked so hard to protect. Murmurs rippled through the room as other ambassadors exchanged worried glances. Some nodded in agreement, while others seemed unsure. Humanity had always been seen as ambitious, but few had expected them to challenge the rules set by the Council. Admiral Hayes listened patiently, his expression unreadable. When it was his turn to speak, he stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "We did not break any treaties," he said firmly, his voice steady and clear. "What you call violations are simply measures taken to ensure our own safety. Your fleets have been encroaching on our borders for months. We have evidence of your aggression." Rachel Morgan leaned forward slightly, adding her support. "Humanity has followed every rule laid out by this council," she said. "But let us be honest, these rules were designed to keep us weak and dependent. While other species prospered, we were told to wait our turn. Well, we are done waiting." Her words sent shockwaves through the chamber. Gasps filled the air as ambassadors realized the gravity of what she was saying. Humanity wasn't just denying the accusations, they were challenging the very foundation of the Galactic Council. One ambassador, a small bird-like creature named Zoran, fluttered nervously. "This is unacceptable," he squawked. "You cannot simply disregard the laws that bind us all together." "Why not?" Hayes shot back, his tone sharper now. "These laws were written long before humanity joined the Council. They favor the powerful and punish the weak. Tell me, Zoran, how many times has your fleet crossed into neutral space without consequence? How many resources have you hoarded while others starve?" The room fell silent. No one dared to answer. Hayes' words struck a nerve, exposing the hypocrisy that had festered within the Council for years. As the debate raged on, it became clear that humanity's patience had run out. Back on Earth, people watched the proceedings live, their hearts swelling with pride and defiance. Social media exploded with messages of support for Hayes and Morgan. Protesters gathered outside embassies, holding signs that read, "No more waiting," and "Equal rights for humanity." Meanwhile, in the shadows of the Council chamber, unseen forces plotted their next move. The accusations against humanity might have been exaggerated or even fabricated, but they served a purpose. Someone wanted to see humanity fail, and they were willing to do whatever it took to make that happen. By the time the meeting adjourned, the galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had drawn a line in the stars, refusing to back down. What would come next was anyone's guess, but one thing was certain: the days of playing by someone else's rules were over. Back on Earth, the situation was growing more intense by the hour. while the Galactic Council debated humanity's actions. A team of scientists deep beneath the surface of the planet made a startling discovery. Dr. Laura Bennett, a brilliant physicist with short brown hair and glasses perched on her nose, had been leading a research project aimed at improving Earth's defense systems. Her lab, hidden miles underground to avoid detection, buzzed with activity as data streamed in from probes scattered across human-controlled space. It started with a routine scan of nearby star systems. One of the probes picked up unusual energy, signatures patterns that didn't match anything natural or previously recorded. At first, Dr. Bennett thought it might be interference, but as her team analyzed the data further, they realized the truth. Alien ships were hiding in plain sight, stockpiling weapons within territories claimed by humanity. "This can't be right," muttered Alex Torres, one of Dr. Bennett's assistants, as he stared at the glowing holographic display. "If these readings are accurate, then the Krylos aren't just accusing us, they're preparing for war." Dr. Bennett nodded grimly. She knew what this meant. For years, humanity had followed the rules set by the Galactic Council, believing that cooperation would lead to peace. But now, it seemed their trust had been misplaced. Someone or something was planning to strike, and humanity was caught in the crosshairs. Word of the discovery reached President Daniel Carter quickly, sitting in his office aboard the orbital command station Liberty. He listened intently as Dr. Bennett explained the findings over a secure channel. The president, a man in his late 50s with graying hair and a stern expression, leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. He trusted Dr. Bennett's judgment, but the implications were staggering. "If this gets out, it could ignite chaos," Carter said finally, breaking the silence. "We need proof before we act." "We have proof," Dr. Bennett replied firmly, "but you need to decide how to use it. If we expose this during the next council meeting, it could turn the tide in our favor, or it could make things worse." Carter sighed deeply. He knew she was right. Humanity stood at a crossroads, and every decision carried risks. Still, one thing was clear: they couldn't sit idly by while others plotted against them. Meanwhile, light years away aboard the battleship Eclipse, Lieutenant Matthew Cole found himself facing a mystery of his own. As part of Admiral Hayes' fleet, Cole was responsible for monitoring communications between alien vessels. Late one night, as he sifted through streams of encrypted messages, something unusual caught his eye: a series of coordinates being sent repeatedly to different ships. Curious, Cole ran the coordinates through the ship's database. What he discovered chilled him to the bone. The locations matched areas where unexplained explosions had occurred recently, areas supposedly under neutral jurisdiction. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. Someone was targeting humanity's allies, trying to weaken their support network. Cole hesitated for a moment, unsure who to tell. His commanding officer, Captain Lisa Nguyen, was strict and by the book. She might dismiss his findings as speculation unless he had solid evidence. But there was another option. Ambassador Rachel Morgan had earned a reputation for listening to even the smallest voices. Maybe she could help. Taking a deep breath, Cole composed a message and sent it directly to Morgan's secure line. Within minutes, she responded, asking for details. By the time their conversation ended, both agreed. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together, revealing a sinister plot far bigger than anyone had imagined. As days passed, tensions continued to rise. On Earth, protests grew louder, with citizens demanding justice. In space, fleets shifted positions, readying for conflict. And behind closed doors, leaders whispered about the choices ahead. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars, but now, surrounded by enemies and allies alike, they faced a question no one could ignore. How far were they willing to go to protect their future? The next session of the Galactic Council began with an atmosphere thick with tension. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the chamber, their voices low and urgent as they exchanged whispers about humanity's growing defiance. At the center of it all stood Admiral Caleb Hayes, his posture unwavering as he faced the assembly. Beside him, Ambassador Rachel Morgan held a datapad tightly in her hands, its contents ready to shift the balance of power. When the meeting was called to order, the Krylos ambassador wasted no time launching into another tirade. His sharp clicks and buzzing tones echoed through the room as he accused humanity of arrogance and recklessness. "Your actions threaten the stability of the entire galaxy," he declared, pointing one clawed limb toward Hayes. "You refuse to follow the laws that bind us together. Why should we tolerate such behavior?" Hayes didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped forward, his voice cutting through the murmurs like a blade. "Stability?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Is that what you call it when your fleets invade neutral zones? When you stockpile weapons in our territory while accusing us of aggression? If this is your idea of peace, then perhaps it's time for a new approach." Rachel Morgan moved closer to the podium, her calm demeanor masking the storm brewing inside. She activated the datapad, projecting holographic images into the air above the council table. The room fell silent as representatives stared at the evidence, scans showing alien ships hiding in human-controlled space, weapon caches marked clearly on star maps, and intercepted communications revealing plans to undermine Earth's alliances. "This is not speculation," Morgan said firmly, her gaze sweeping across the room. "These are facts. Facts that prove others have broken treaties long before we did. Humanity has bent over backward to comply with your rules, only to be met with hostility and betrayal. No more. From this moment on, we will act in our own best interests." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Some ambassadors leaped to their feet, shouting objections. Others whispered urgently to their neighbors, fear flickering in their eyes. A few, however, remained silent, watching, calculating. Among them was Elder Kale of the Lumina, a wise and ancient being whose glowing form seemed to radiate calm. He exchanged a glance with Commander Aaron of the Varnak, a hulking warrior species known for their strength and honor. Both had grown tired of the Council's corruption, and now they saw an opportunity to challenge it. Back on Earth, news of Hayes' declaration spread like wildfire. Citizens gathered in city squares, cheering as broadcasts replayed his words. Social media lit up with messages of support, hashtags like #NoMoreTreaties and #StandWithHayes trending globally. Even dissenters who had once criticized humanity's expansionist policies found themselves inspired by the bold stand against oppression. But not everyone celebrated. Senator Emily Dawson, a vocal advocate for peace, paced anxiously in her office. She admired Hayes' courage, but feared the consequences of his actions. "We're walking a dangerous path," she muttered to her aide, a young man named Jason. "War isn't something we can win without losing pieces of ourselves." Her concerns weren't unfounded. Across the galaxy, alien leaders scrambled to respond to humanity's defiance. Fleets mobilized, supply lines were reinforced, and secret meetings took place in shadowy corners of the cosmos. The Krylos ambassadors stormed out of the council chamber, vowing retribution. Other factions debated whether to side with humanity or crush them before they became too powerful. As the days passed, the galaxy braced for what came next. On the Eclipse, Lieutenant Matthew Cole monitored the shifting movements of alien ships, his fingers flying over control panels as he updated Captain Lisa Nguyen. "They're preparing for something big," he reported grimly. "I don't think they'll back down easily." Nguyen nodded, her expression hardening. "Then we'd better be ready." Admiral Hayes returned to Earth briefly, meeting with President Carter to discuss strategy. The two men stood in a dimly lit war room, surrounded by maps and projections of potential battlefields. "This isn't just about winning," Hayes said quietly. "It's about proving that we deserve respect, that we won't be pushed around anymore." Carter placed a hand on his shoulder. Then, let's make sure we're prepared for whatever comes next. In the quiet moments between decisions, Hayes allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The weight of leadership pressed heavily on him, but he knew there was no turning back. Humanity had drawn a line in the stars and the galaxy would never be the same again. Rachel Morgan couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The Council's reaction to humanity's defiance had been fierce, but there was an undercurrent of panic in their voices, a desperation she hadn't expected. As ambassador, it was her job to read between the lines, and what she sensed worried her deeply. Someone on the Council wasn't just upset, they were scared, and when people were scared, they made mistakes. It started during a private conversation she overheard. By chance, she had stayed behind after another heated session, pretending to review documents near the chamber doors. Two ambassadors, a reptilian diplomat named Vrax, and a soft-spoken aquatic being called Liren were speaking in hushed tones. Their words were vague, but one phrase stuck in Rachel's mind, neutralized the threat. At first, she thought, they meant economic sanctions or political pressure. But as she listened closer, her blood ran cold. They've gone too far this time, Vrax hissed, his forked tongue flicking with irritation. If we don't act now, they'll bring down everything we've built. And how do you propose we stop them? Liren replied, her melodic voice trembling slightly. Their technology is advanced, and their resolve stronger than we anticipated. Vrax leaned closer, lowering his voice even further. We strike at the heart, remove their leaders, disrupt their economy, and let chaos do the rest. Humanity will crumble without direction. Rachel froze, her hands gripping the edge of the table to steady herself. This wasn't just rhetoric, it was a plan, a dangerous one. Her mind raced as she slipped away unnoticed, determined to warn Admiral Hayes and President Carter. But before she could act, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Later that evening, Lieutenant Matthew Cole contacted her again. His message was urgent. Ambassador Moga. I think I found something, he said, his voice tense over the secure line. I intercepted a transmission from a ship registered to the Council. It mentioned Earth specifically and coordinates for several key locations. Rachel's stomach tightened. What kind of locations? Power grids? Communication? Hubs? Manufacturing plants? Cole explained. Critical infrastructure. Whoever sent this message is planning to cripple us. The implications hit Rachel like a punch. The Council wasn't just preparing for war, they were plotting sabotage. If they succeeded, humanity would be thrown into chaos, unable to defend itself against future attacks. Worse still, most citizens wouldn't even know who was responsible until it was too late. Determined to expose the truth, Rachel arranged a secret meeting with Cole aboard the Eclipse. When she arrived, he greeted her with a data chip containing the intercepted messages. Together, they pored over the information, piecing together a chilling picture. The Council had already begun mobilizing resources, funneling weapons and agents toward Earth under the guise of routine trade missions. We need to act fast, Rachel said finally, her voice firm despite the fear gnawing at her. If we can prove they're planning an attack, we might be able to rally support from other species. Not everyone trusts the Council. Cole nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. Do you really think they'll turn against their own leaders? They will if they see the alternative, Rachel replied. Humanity isn't the only one suffering under the Council's rule. There are others who want change, they're just waiting for someone to lead the way. Back on Earth, Rachel shared her findings with President Carter and Admiral Hayes. The three of them met in a secure bunker beneath the capital city, poring over maps and intelligence reports. Hayes clenched his fists as he studied the evidence, his jaw tight with anger. They're trying to destroy us before we have a chance to fight back, he growled. But they underestimate us. They always have. Carter placed a hand on his shoulder. Then we show them exactly what we're capable of. We fortify our defenses, expose their plans, and remind the galaxy why humanity deserves respect. As the meeting ended, Rachel felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead would be difficult, but humanity wasn't alone. Across the galaxy, whispers of rebellion were spreading. Oppressed species watched closely, inspired by humanity's courage. For the first time in years, the balance of power seemed within reach, and Rachel knew they couldn't afford to let it slip away. President Daniel Carter didn't waste any time. After seeing the evidence Rachel Morgan and Lieutenant Matthew Cole had gathered, he called an emergency session with his top advisors. The room was dimly lit, the walls lined with screens displaying maps of Earth's most vulnerable locations. Admiral Caleb Hayes stood at the head of the table, his expression grim as he outlined their options. "We can't wait for them to strike first," Hayes said, pointing to the blinking red dots on the map. "These are the targets they've identified: power plants, communication hubs, manufacturing centers. If they hit these, we'll be crippled before we even have a chance to respond." Carter nodded, his fingers drumming against the polished surface of the table. "Then we hit them first," he said firmly. "Not out of anger, but out of necessity. We disrupt their plans, send a message that humanity won't back down." The plan came together quickly. It was codenamed Operation Dawnbreaker series of precise strikes aimed at dismantling the Council's secret weapons stockpiles and supply lines. Humanity's advanced technology gave them an edge, allowing them to move faster and strike harder than anyone expected. Admiral Hayes, personally, led the operation, commanding fleets stationed near key alien territories. Back on Earth, President Carter addressed the public, explaining the situation in simple terms. "For too long, we've played by rules designed to hold us back," Carter said during a live broadcast. "Now, we're taking a stand not just for ourselves, but for every species that has suffered under the Council's tyranny. This is not an act of aggression, it is an act of survival." The operation began at dawn, Earth time. Ships moved silently through the void, guided by coordinates provided by Cole's intercepted transmissions. The first wave targeted a massive weapons depot hidden in an asteroid field controlled by the Krylos. Pilots held their breath as they approached, knowing that one wrong move could mean disaster. But humanity's stealth technology worked flawlessly, allowing them to disable the facility without alerting nearby patrols. News of the victory spread quickly. On distant colonies, oppressed populations watched in awe as reports poured in of humanity's success. Commander Aaron of the Varnak sent a private message to Admiral Hayes, pledging support. "You've shown us what's possible," Aaron wrote. "If you need allies, you'll find them among those who seek freedom." But not everyone celebrated. Senator Emily Dawson remained skeptical, her face pale as she watched footage of the attack. She met with President Carter in private, her voice trembling with emotion. "This isn't justice, it's revenge," she argued. "Every life lost will weigh on our conscience. Is this really the future we want?" Carter sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. "I wish it were different, Emily. But sometimes, peace requires sacrifice. We're fighting for more than just ourselves. We're fighting for a galaxy where no one has to live in fear." As the days passed, Operation Dawnbreaker gained momentum. Strikes were carried out with precision, each mission weakening the Council's grip on the galaxy. Alien leaders scrambled to respond, but humanity's speed and efficiency left them reeling. Even some neutral species began to question their allegiance to the Council. Inspired by humanity's boldness, Lieutenant Cole found himself at the center of the action, coordinating attacks from the Eclipse. Though proud of their successes, he couldn't shake the weight of responsibility. Every decision he made affected countless lives, and the toll was beginning to show. Late one night, as he stared at the stars outside his viewport, Captain Lisa Nguyen joined him. "You look like you haven't slept in days," she said, handing him a cup of coffee. "I haven't," Cole admitted, taking a sip. It's hard to rest when you know how much is at stake. Nguyen placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. We're doing the right thing, Matt. Just remember why we started this fight. Cole nodded, though doubt lingered in his mind. The war was far from over, and the cost of victory was still unknown. But for now, humanity stood tall, its defiance lighting the way for others to follow.